Today, let's talk about what the mainstream media isn't regarding the war we are still fighting on multiple fronts and taking place around us. Let's start with Syria. The world continues to ignore the systematic massacre of Druze, Christians, and Alawites by the Sunni jihadis in Syria. Yes, it's still happening. And now Russia, as Jonathan Pollard warned me, is strengthening ties with the Jolani regime. We're potentially looking at Russian troops deployed near Israel's northern border and Russian military equipment being given to this ISIS regime committing ethnic cleansing. Make no mistake, this is bad news for the whole region, bad news for the minorities in Syria, and bad news for Israel if it actually happens. And what's the solution? The same solution that I've been talking about since the toppling of the Assad regime in December 2024. Israel should have liberated southern Syria already and remain there. Only Israel can offer the protection and stability those minority communities need. And guess what? The Druze in Syria are now openly calling once again for Israel to remain, waving Israeli flags. Hundreds are protesting in Swaida and surrounding towns in an unprecedented move, demanding justice, rejecting Jolani's rule, and in some cases, calling on Israel to intervene and remain there. After Israel has continuously acted to save their lives since the beginning of this ISIS-Syrian revolution. Let's go to Lebanon. Washington is pressuring the Lebanese government to come up with a plan to disarm Hezbollah. Sounds nice, right? Great future for Lebanon. There's just one problem. Hezbollah, meaning Iran, rejects the plan outright. Surprise! They'll never give up their weapons voluntarily. So what's going to happen? Likely violence, civil war, once again in Lebanon. So let's not kid ourselves. The only real solution for southern Lebanon is for Israel to liberate it and remain in it as well, to protect the minorities there and our own northern border from a Hezbollah that will never give up its weapons and still be intent on destroying Israel, period, and invading Israel via the terror tunnels they built. Let's go to Gaza. After months of hesitation, the IDF is finally preparing a plan to liberate all of Gaza. Not because the IDF wants to, but because the government is finally pushing the IDF to do what is necessary. This is the uphill battle Netanyahu has been facing with from day one in the war. A military leadership and legal system more worried about global opinion than victory over our enemies. But now we're seeing Netanyahu begin to push back hard against these deep state forces. It's not easy, but it's the only way we're going to win, and we will win on all fronts. Now let's turn to what's going on internally on the streets of Israel. Well, yesterday, the most destructive protest movement in Israeli society reemerged on the streets across Israel. What's really going on? Once again, a tiny group of people are causing harm to the whole country and to the hostages still in Gaza. These demonstrations, held under the banner of supporting the hostages, are in reality a left-wing political campaign aimed at toppling the government. Far from helping the hostages, the leaders of that movement make the hostages situation even worse, as the whole Bring Them Home campaign has done since day one. Not only do these protests not bring us any closer to rescuing our hostages, they do the exact opposite. They send a dangerous message to our enemies that kidnapping Jews works. Kidnap a Jew to encourage Jewish protests to attain political or diplomatic aims, like stopping us fight a just and necessary war against an evil enemy. These protesters are endangering every Jew all over the world. We cannot and we will not allow that precedent to take hold. And again in the morning, this unhinged protest movement has returned to the streets attempting to paralyze Israel's economy. They will fail again, but the damage is real. The organizers are calling it a day of disruption, a day of rage, they say, in the name of the hostages. But let's stop pretending. This protest movement has nothing to do with the hostages. People out in the streets think of it like that, but not the leadership. It's a left-wing political operation masquerading as national concern, and it's dangerous. Yes, you read that right, dangerous. During peacetime, this kind of traffic blocking, economy stalling chaos would already be criminal. But in the middle of a war, a real war, with real soldiers on the front lines and real hostage lives hanging in the balance, this kind of behavior literally crosses a red line and becomes treasonous because it endangers the whole country. Some people have good hearts, but the leadership, they're the ones that are a problem. And no, this is not hyperbole. Let's ask a simple question. Who actually benefits from these protests? Certainly not the hostages. If the intent were really to pressure Hamas, we'd see some kind of change, a signal, a concession, even the beginning of a negotiation. Instead, what do we see? It emboldens Hamas. They see internal strife. They see a divided Israel. They see weakness. And worst of all, they see Israelis willing to turn on their own government and fellow citizens in the middle of war. So now Hamas is saying they'll go for another partial deal, but that's because we're going to war in Gaza, not because of the protests. That is exactly what they want, an internally divided Israel. This emboldens them to double down on their demands, not soften them up. These protests are not pressuring Hamas. They're encouraging Hamas to hold on tighter. They're signaling that the longer Hamas holds out, the more Israelis will turn against ourselves, our own people. That is pure fuel for our enemies. These protesters are helping Hamas, not the hostages of Israel and Gaza. All Israelis want every hostage home. We all do, but pretending that turning the country's intersections into a war zone of blocked highways and chaos will bring them home is a lie. It won't, it hasn't, and it never will. And it only serves Hamas. These protesters are literally acting as foot soldiers of Hamas in a war against all of us, including the protesters. Hamas wants to kill all and rape all of them too. Thankfully, not all the hostage families are being manipulated. In fact, many hostage families are against this protest. Half of the Nova massacre families, through the Din V'Tzedek Forum, issued a powerful statement rejecting these protests. They said, I quote, "Our pain must never be used for politics or division. Israel's power is in unity, supporting our soldiers, the wounded and survivors. A nation holding hands cannot be defeated," end quote. Those are the words of true strength, not shouting in the streets against our government, not blocking ambulances and intersections, not handing propaganda wins to Hamas. These protests aren't about justice. They're not about the hostages and not about democracy. It's about tearing Israel apart from the inside in a time of war to topple a government at the exact moment our enemies are hoping we do. And it's all serving the interests of Hamas. I feel a deep sense of pity for those protesters. So consumed, their leadership, by anger towards their fellow Jews and blind to the proud, resilient Jewish spirit rising in Israel today. They don't care how their actions, however well-intentioned to the masses they may seem. Ultimately, they serve Hamas, prolong the suffering of our hostages, and weaken Israel from within. What they fail to grasp is that their rage, their misplaced moral outrage, and their alliance with the failed establishment and deep state, those who appease terror for decades, do nothing to help our people be freed. In fact, they do the opposite. They're just holding on to them longer. And yet the Israeli public is no longer buying into this manipulation. Despite the mainstream media's relentless efforts day and night to amplify these protests and prop up the anti-Netanyahu government campaign, people are waking up. The narrative control they once held is slipping away thanks to bold, patriotic, and clear-headed voices in alternative media such as Israeli Channel 14. Yes, the deep state left still has powerful tools at its disposal, the media, the courts, the university institutions, but the public is no longer falling for their distortions. Their moral confusion, their willingness to sacrifice national unity and security for political gain because of their hatred of Netanyahu is being exposed. We are winning this war, and we will win, because protecting all 10 million citizens of Israel must remain our highest priority. To further prove the true motivation behind the top-level leadership of this protest movement, I'm sharing this post by Iris Khaim, whose son was kidnapped by Hamas and killed in Gaza, trying to escape captivity. And this is Iris Khaim's exact words. Exactly 1 year ago, a teacher in Israel wrote to me, quote, "A despicable woman thriving in the studios ever since her son was executed," end quote. That's what he wrote to Iris. Today, Iris writes, "I received this message from a woman whose Facebook profile says that she's a psychologist and studied at the University of Haifa. I have a lot of hope for my country, but when I get a message like this, honestly, sometimes it feels like we've lost our way." And this is the message she got from this psychologist. Quote, "Get out of our sight already." This is to Iris Khaim, the mother of a kidnapped hostage in Gaza. "You've been glowing ever since your miserable son was murdered. The protests tomorrow are meant to bring down a government that has decided to abandon the hostages to their deaths. There's no other way, and this should have happened long ago. Your prime minister funded Hamas for years, ignored the army's warnings about the tunnels, and now a one-day pause to express solidarity. That's what's dividing the nation? Just leave us alone. Mourn a little, and learn from a not second doker how to be a worthy mother." She's also the mother of a kidnapped hostage in Gaza. "Shame on you," end quote. To you too, Michal, this is what Iris writes. I have no grudge. I'm not angry at you. Just 2 weeks ago, we read the book of Lamentations, and here is the hatred among us. I'm sharing this here because I'm certain I'm not the only one receiving hateful messages like this. To anyone still thinking that shutting down the economy is truly about solidarity with the hostage families, here's your answer. I didn't publish her full name out of respect. I still have values and moral standards. I'm sorry for you, Michal. That's the end of Iris Chaim's message. Again, mother of a hostage kidnapped and then killed in Gaza. And to all of you still undecided, wake up. The stakes are too high to stay silent. These protests are harmful to us. They support Hamas. Stay tuned, stay strong, and most importantly, never be afraid to speak the truth. Am Yisrael Chai. And when you hear the latest news about Hamas agreeing to the ceasefire deal to release hostages, think about this. They're not doing anything different than they've done before. They're not agreeing to leave Gaza. They're not agreeing to release all the hostages. They're agreeing to a partial thing with all of their conditions and stopping the war for another 2 months, which is basically about dividing Israel once again. Because then they argue for this for weeks over this point and that point, all to harness the division within Israel, because everyone's going to be arguing and it's going to be in the news every night. It's about creating division. That's why I hope and pray that Netanyahu right now finally has come to the decision. The only deal he will agree to with Hamas is according to the conditions he already laid out. They agree to totally be expelled. They give up all their weapons and all of our hostages are given back. That's it. If whatever you're hearing in the news are not those conditions, then just understand this is Hamas manipulating the Israeli public to create further division. It's not about ending the war or saving our remaining hostages. We will win this. We're going to win this war. We're going to remain in Gaza forever because that is the only solution to protect all of Israel, and it's our land, and we're supposed to be there. Am Yisrael Chai. Stick with us at the Pulse of Israel to understand the truth of what's going on beyond the headlines. If you are not yet a subscriber to our daily, belief-based, inspiring, politically incorrect, truthful videos about Israel, the Jewish people, and the freedom-loving world, what are you waiting for? Go to pulsevisual.com and click to subscribe today. And yes, we are a donor-based operation. We need your donations for support in order to make these videos and get our videos seen and do all the work we do. So every once in a while, whether a large donation or a small donation, just go to pulsevisual.com and click on the donate button. Shalom, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.